Hi, guys. Welcome back to Murder in Retrograde for our, I think, 24th episode. Thank you for coming back or for finding us for the first time. We're really excited that you're here. And today we're covering something that's not necessarily what you would expect for true crime, but
No.
it's very
Yeah.
interesting.
So yes and no. I think it goes hand in hand, but yeah, it's not the typical true crime story, but I think people that like true crime really like these types of stories, don't you?
Oh, yeah. And it's multi-layered and is going to probably go on for a while. So we're going to get into it. Today, we are
Yeah.
going to talk about Anna Delvey or Anna Sorokin, however you know her. So here we go. I'm Jenna Kaplan,
I'm Brittany Sheffrin.
and this is Murder in Retrograde.
Okay, so it's Anna Sorokin. Interesting. You know that how to spell that. I mean, how to pronounce that last name. I didn't realize it was pronounced that way.
So I could be doing it wrong. We had a family member who had this last name, and that's how they pronounced it, but
Huh.
they're not from Russia or Germany, so it could be just different pronunciations. I'm not really sure, but
So
the Delvey.
Anna Delvey is who she became. She was Russian born but raised in Germany. She was born on January 23rd, 1991, making her an Aquarius,
Hmm.
which is very fitting because Aquarians are forward thinking, ahead of their time, overly confident,
I don't know too
futuristic.
many Aquarius. I don't know anything about Aquarius. Funny enough. Sorry, as I'm thinking as you're saying that.
Taurus and Aquarius don't get along very well. Maybe that's why.
That's funny. Interesting.
I'm just kidding.
No, it's
So
interesting though.
I think that they would make for the perfect con men slash con woman. Just, um, that futuristic thinking of like, I deserve this. I don't know. It makes sense to me, but maybe that's just me. She was born in, oh, here we go, Domodedovo, Russia, just outside Moscow.
Sounds
I
right.
can't imagine how bad that was. But as I said earlier, her family moved to, oh, here we go. Why am I putting cities in here? Like I'm going to be able to pronounce this. Eschweiler, Germany? No clue. Eventually, she moved out of her family home and moved by herself to Paris. At this time, her parents and brother moved to the nearby German town of Durin, which I actually have heard of.
I don't know.
So, so she was essentially a Russian immigrant with huge aspirations, and she set her sights on Manhattan's upper society because why not? That's not grasping at straws at all. That's not a very difficult, place to get into.
Aim
But she
high.
wanted to make her mark with literally no pedigree to lean on, and that's not an easy task in New York. Um, it's so untouchable, right? Like the
Mm.
socialite scene and like what's her face from Real
Paris?
Housewives, Tinsley
Oh.
Mortimer
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
and yeah, Paris, that whole
I always think of Paris Hilton when I think of heiress and like New York and I
yeah,
don't
she
know.
really
But she wasn't
changed.
even whatever, but that's who I think of.
Yeah. Um However, the rich do fall victim to cons because sometimes they don't ask enough questions. For example, a wealthy friend lends her money, and we'll discuss that later. But early on, Miss Sorokin hopped around Germany and Paris before finally making her way to New York City in 2014. Anna's father, is it Why do I ask you like
I
you
know you're
know?
like asking the wrong person. I'm always stumbling with these things.
Yeah.
Vadim,
Vadim
Vadim,
Sorokin. How do you say the last name again?
Sorokin.
Sorokin, okay, sorry, was a truck driver, and her mother owned a small convenience store before becoming a housewife. Anna has been described as a wonderful student. She learned several languages, but she did struggle a bit with German. But who wouldn't struggle a bit with German? She loved fashion from a very young age and just didn't want to be from a European drab little town that was heavily bombed during the Second World War. She wanted to be a socialite in the highest fashion, walking down the streets of New York City. Um, and then, so according to the Daily Mail, Anna's past is hazy at best. Like it's almost impossible to track anything down. But they reported, quote, until now, most accounts of her life have said that she left Germany to move to London to study at the prestigious Central St. Martin's College of Art. In fact, Daily Mail TV can reveal that she was offered a place there and turned it down. A spokesman from the school said she did not attend, having been accepted to study. It is unclear if her parents believed she was there or not, because they were funding this whole thing. They
Yeah,
were
so like
sending
the
her money for
con
rent.
starts early. Like she's probably like, yeah, I'm going to school, and then you know.
Yeah. So it started with her parents, which if you can do it to your parents, who can, who are you afraid of? Um, her father told New York Magazine earlier this year, quote, "We always paid for her accommodations, her rent, and other matters." So yeah, living off of them and doing God knows what. She went to Berlin and began interning in 2012 at a fashion PR company. And the following year, she moved to Paris, working as an intern at Purple magazine. This time, she had reinvented herself and her name. Now she was calling herself Anna Delvey. And she arrived in New York City in 2014 with a new identity that was completely fabricated. She was now Anna Delvey, the German heiress worth 60 million euros, which is roughly 71 million US dollars. Um, and then one of the things that Anna spoke a lot about when she was in these social circles or attempting to get into the New York scene was that she wanted to create a foundation. And she created an 80-page proposal that she would have on hand anytime she went out so that she could give it to potential investors. And here's an excerpt from that document. ADF, which is a acronym for the Anna Delvey Foundation, is a membership club experience conceived by art collector and Cole native Anna Delvey, organized around a world-class contemporary art collection. Operated as a nonprofit housed within a club's building, this contemporary collection will inform ADF's exclusive membership experience and foster an environment unavailable anywhere else in the world. Easily accessible and stylishly conceived, ADF offers fine dining, cocktails, member lounges, contemporary art, and an artist studio, entirely integrated with an historic building in the heart of Manhattan.
I mean,
That's,
I would want to be a part of this. It sounds amazing.
oh my
It's just
gosh.
like over the top, like everything and anything. Like, let's just add it all. Mention
Yeah,
it all.
it's exactly. It's like too much. It's absurd. Rolling everything into one that a rich person would love to throw money at.
Totally. And I will say I looked at some of the pages of this brochure, and she actually had, we don't get into it much, but there was a gentleman who put it together for her with like her logo and like did all of the, like she gave him the pictures and like the information. He created it. Um he never got paid, but that was like so that's part of this whole story. But yeah, that sounds amazing.
Yeah, it's interesting. I worked in this art world in New York, and I looked at proposals like this because I worked for a foundation, and this is exactly the type of thing that they would love to fund,
Mhm.
and that the whole art scene loves, like to be seen somewhere. And I don't know, it's just sounded like so many different things. She was describing like a mall essentially.
So let me ask you, so if, since you do come from this world, if you had saw this brochure or whatever, do you guys look at who the person is that's behind it and like what their pedigree is before you look further into it? Do you know what I mean? Like,
So that's an interesting question. It totally depends on the foundation. It's up to them to decide, and it's their board of directors that decides who gets funded and who doesn't.
mhm.
But whether or not they have employed other people to look through it, to vet it, um, I always did, but I know a lot of people didn't. And a lot of times, even after vetting it and finding out that it really was a foundation and we gave money to them, I would show up for site visits because we would go show up and want to see what the money
Yeah.
had done. And it would be a vacant building. It'd be like, oh my
Shut.
gosh. So it even happened to us when like they would get all of the correct paperwork and just scam people.
Oh man. I mean,
So
and that's the thing that I mean, again, we're gonna get into all kinds of stuff, but I found that like this foundation was what you would say, I guess the motive behind everything was, but I kept asking myself, like, is this a real aspiration she had, or was this like the front for like I don't do all the money that she was trying to collect?
I think it was a front because it's everything the people in that world want to hear. It's like, "Oh,
Yeah.
I come from money and I'm going to start this." Like people immediately glom onto somebody like that cuz it's like,
Yeah.
"Oh, I can sell them my real estate. Oh, they'll want to invest in my hedge fund." So rich people like stick on to those types of people, and she just made herself look like perfect bait with that brochure, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Allegedly.
Allegedly.
So, so anyway, that's she was trying to accumulate these large lumps of money to purportedly start the foundation. Who knows what really she was intending on doing with that. I'm sure that we'll hear about it. For the foundation, Anna tried to get a $22 million loan from Fortress Investment Group in 2017. She obtained the loan by showing fraudulent documents to the firm that showed she had a 60 million euro fortune. How do you do that? Like create
She's
those
just forging
documents.
documents.
She's young, like she's I mean, okay, maybe just young and dumb or just the bravery of like this
I
is
also
not
think
like a $10,000. This is 60 million euro.
so she during this time I believe was around 23, 24. So I think she also
Whoa.
falls into that age of like she's probably very tech savvy. So she's probably not afraid. And I think too like I hear this a lot in another show that I listen to, but confidence, right? Like it's the confidence that you exude and people just eat it up. It's like if you could if you have the confidence, you can sell anything at that point, including your who you are, to
Yeah.
try and get $22 million. I do
Whoo-wee.
not exude that.
No.
I wish I
I
did.
I guarantee you there is not a con man or con woman who had anxiety. There it just the two don't go together. I'd be
No,
like
I
sweating
know,
and
same. No way.
I'm sorry, I made all of this up.
I'm just kidding. I take it back.
Yeah, it
Oh my
just
god.
so yeah, very but it reminds me of an Aquarius. Like they're the type when you're like, go jump off the top of this roof. They're like, okay, I can do it. They're just air sign, like crazy. The unactualized Aquarius is like that. Not all of them. Um, so
So
anyway, she
interesting.
went to this investment firm. She's trying to get this huge loan, and the investment firm wants to see due diligence, and so they ask her to put up $100,000. And Anna, being Anna, was able to obtain a $100,000 loan from a different bank, City National. She convinced that bank to give her an overdraft just for a few days until she could repay in full. Like, how is she? She's not strikingly beautiful.
Right.
She's like very soft spoken, but I guess mysterious. I don't know what power she has over banks. It's not like it's somebody, it's a bank.
I
You
think
can't.
from everything that I read, I feel like she's got like, an accent, right? She got this like German accent or whatever. And she is maybe because she does come off a little meek. Like, did people feel bad for her, thus believe her? Like, this has been my ongoing question because I look at her pictures and stuff and I'm like, I don't understand because and then that's not to be in a mean way, but she, like you said, I mean, she's cute. She's very cute. She's got a stylish, like kind of um
Yeah.
like, I could see her in the fashion world 100%, right? But, like you said, she's not like a friggin' runway model where people are, like, falling over themselves and just whatever, giving that this whole thing is so interesting to me, but I think she had to have some sort of, like, charisma about her for people to just want to help her out, or I don't know. Or maybe she was able to show them, "Look, I have all this money in a trust fund. She's obviously forging documents at this point, allegedly. So to make people think she has
It's
money.
probably so easy when you're from Europe and you come to America. Like
Probably.
I just was listening to this podcast and they were talking about how it shows how obnoxious Americans are, that the fact that we think we don't have an accent. You
We
know what
have
I
the
mean? Like we
worst
think
accent.
we're the baseline. Meanwhile, the rest of the world is like, oh, it's like the worst sounding, But anyway, yeah, I don't know. I just feel like you come in, you're German. I don't know.
No,
You know what I mean?
I
Like,
could see it. It's like a swagger about yourself since you're from somewhere else. And she
yeah.
like was rocking designer clothes according to people who knew her or know her.
Yeah. Yeah, you
So
wouldn't know anything about being attracted to a foreign accent, would you? Okay, so
uh,
she's going to get this 100K from City National, which she gets, and then she okay, wait. She ended up spending the total amount. No, no,
no,
no.
she
Wait.
gave it to them and then she backed out. And so when she backed out, she was only able to get 55 back.
Right. So
And
she
then
got the 100,000 for the investment firm and they started going through her finances and they had charged her 45,000 for that. And she said, "Okay, forget it. I don't want to do anything with you guys. Give me the rest." She took 55,000 of that and spent all of that in 1 month. 55,000 in 1 month.
I mean,
I
that would
mean,
be
that would be fun, but
fun.
that would be like you'd have to shop like every single day.
Well,
Anyway,
you'll
of
hear
course,
about how
never
that happens.
yeah, she she never repaid that loan, obviously. Um, and then as things got dicier, she began check kiting. Had you ever heard of this before?
I had never heard of that. I understood what was happening, but I had never heard the actual term used.
Yeah.
But I think
Yeah.
it's pretty common.
Yeah. For us yesteryear folk, right, that remember checks. But this is the process of depositing bad checks and then transferring funds out before they bounced.
Hmm.
This check kiting was how she was able to pay $30,000 for 11 Howard via a wire transfer, the hotel she was staying at. And between April 7th and 11th, she deposited a total of $160,000 in bad checks into a Citibank account and transferred 70,000 of that before it bounced. So she's good. She's quick while she's
She's
shopping. She's
yeah.
moving money, moving money, moving money that doesn't exist. In August, she brought a new bank into the game and opened an account with Signature Bank and deposited $15,000 of bad checks while withdrawing $8,200 before that bounced. I wonder if banks have a way of like telling each other to look out for somebody.
I doubt it.
No?
I feel like Wells Fargo, for example, would have like, memos or conference calls or whatever with its like branch managers and stuff like that. But I don't think they're gonna reach out to other banks. They don't give a flip what other banks are doing, right? They just want to know like where their money is. I don't think they care about anything else.
Yeah.
I don't know. So that's kind of like the way she's moving and grooving.
Yeah.
And as we talked about earlier, Anna worked for a Purple magazine, which is like I find it to be like a fashion and art magazine.
Yeah.
And she appeared to be close with the magazine's editor in chief, Oliver Zaham Zam Zam
Olivier Zam.
Olivier Olivier. Oh, okay, great.
Olivier. I think so.
Anyway, this relationship had allowed her to start attending certain functions and hanging out with very influential, important people. And through this connection with the editor, she met famous architects and artists and developers. And I feel like this was kind of her gateway into the scenes, right? Like you just only got to know one person to get into the party, and then everything else is like, as we'll hear, is a fake it till you make it kind of attitude.
Yes.
So ultimately, this all led to Abby Rosen, who is the owner of the Soho Hotel 11 Howard, and also the owner of the building that Anna hoped would eventually become the home of the Anna Delvey Foundation. So she she started staying at 11 Howard, and within a month, she had found a new person to kind of suck in, and it was the concierge. So she's 25-year-old I'm gonna mess it up. Nefertari
Let's just
Davis,
call
but
her
we call
Neff.
her Neff because that's what she's called constantly in articles when you read about her, and I'm assuming it's her nickname that she goes by.
Sorry, but for a concierge, doesn't 25 seem really young? I mean, I guess it's like the New
So
York.
what this is too is this is I think just a side gig for her because she's an aspiring film director. So
She's 25.
that's what she was saying. I don't know.
Okay, sorry. I forgot how funny the world of your 20s is. Okay, go ahead.
So, well, anyway, but I mean, whatever. So Anna would start coming out down to Neff and like asking for restaurant like recommendations. And she said she kind of noticed that Anna already knew the best restaurants. And she was like, why is she asking me this? She said, but she also sees this with clients who kind of just want like a friend or someone to talk to, a therapist, whatever, while they're there, more than like getting recommendations.
100%. When people are wealthy, pretty much every friend they have is on, what
Payroll
do they say? On the dole, on
on
the,
the payroll.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Almost always.
Yeah. So, she started to come hanging out with Anna randomly. She would like come down, and every time that she would come down and talk to Neff, she would just be like handing $100 bills. That was like her thing. She would get people's attention by handing out dollar bills, $100 bills. And a lot of the staff described Anna as ill mannered, and she never said please or thank you. But again, people would fight over who's going to like take her packages and stuff like that because they're like, I'm getting $100 if I go help her. Cause,
I bet.
she was just like passing them out.
That now makes sense. She was probably paying people off. That's why she
Yeah.
was getting all of this bank help.
Oh, maybe. I don't know. So, anyway, so Neff had, said that she wasn't necessarily like ill-mannered, but she thought that Anna was, quote, an old-fashioned princess who had been plucked from the ancient European castle and deposited into the modern world. I feel like I totally like I read that quote and I was like, I get it. I totally get it.
Yeah,
Like you can imagine it. And she fits the bill, even just like the
she
way she looks.
does.
It's interesting. I was like dead on. So this is exactly how a lot of very rich people act. They don't want to do the regular daily tasks while they're in a foreign land. And Anna would frequently, like I said, come down and hang out with her. And this all led to like becoming friends, actual friends. I mean, they started going to like dinners together, and Anna was always picking up the tab, paying for these, couple $100 dinners. And it was interesting later on as you kind of read Neff's stories that are out there. She said, I think that like Anna kind of knew right away that like Neff didn't have money or contacts for her. So she felt like it was like an actual genuine friendship. And maybe she had to just keep it with the $100 bills until she like reeled her in. I don't know how that all worked. So, yes, they became genuine friends, and Neff never had any reason to believe that Anna wasn't who she said she was because she would host these lavish parties and she would see, well, first of all, she would throw these parties and she found herself next to Macaulay Culkin at one point. So she's like, that's enough to be like, all right, you obviously know people if you got
Yeah.
celebrities coming out the
Well, the
woodwork
$100
for
bills
you.
alone, you think like, oh, well, you don't even care. You just want to go wherever they keep giving them out.
Yeah, and Neff kind of became Anna's like pseudo secretary during all of this too. So she saw who Anna's having these meetings with, and so she like, but with all of that smoke and mirrors, you have no reason to question it.
Yeah.
There was one situation where they were out to dinner and her Anna's card gets declined and Neff paid for it, but it was like the lower dinner they'd ever had. It like was like $300, which like but whatever. And she said, but by the next day, Anna had paid her like triple what dinner was actually worth. So again, she never
Oh,
saw like,
nice.
yeah, so she never saw kind of that shady character. Um, so when Neff had, interestingly enough, had run into Abby Rosen, the owner of 11 Howard's son, Charlie, in the hotel, and she had said something along the lines of, your client being in the hotel. And he, so this is a quote from the cut about his response. And he said, Rosen looked confused. He didn't appear to have heard of Anna or her project. What room is she staying in? He asked. When Neff told him, he looked skeptical. If my dad has someone buying property for him and staying here, would she be in a deluxe or would she be in a suite? And she said he had a point. And when she had asked Anna about it, her response is kind of interesting. She says, she said, have you ever had someone do so many favors for you, you kind of just want to pay them back in silence? So I don't know if that just was like, I mean, she's good. It sounds like she's good at deflecting, right? She's like, oh, well, I'm just taking too much from him. So I'm going to quietly
To
stay in my deluxe instead of the penthouse. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, it's weird because it's also like a thinly veiled threat if she's saying it to Neff. Like, I've given you so much stuff, like stop asking me questions.
Oh, I totally didn't even read it that way.
But
I
it
thought
could
she
it could
was
be your way, or she
deflecting.
wants it to be both ways. Like, that's how duplicitous this type of person is. Like, they're
Yeah.
always double dealing, and I can't imagine keeping it all straight. Like all your
No,
lies and
no, there's no, I would not be able to keep, no. Mm-mm.
no. I wouldn't even be able to keep the bank account straight. It'd be like, oh shoot, where's that other bank?
Oh man. And in 2018, Neff gave an interview to Paper Magazine, and this was after there's a infamous article that kind of spun all of this out of control in the New York Magazine by
Yeah.
Jessica, and I forget her last name. But anyways, so this interview with Paper was after the fact, and Neff goes on to say that first she wanted to do interviews because she felt like only negative was being put out there and she wanted people to know the Anna that she knew. And I totally respect and understand that. Like if my friend was getting dragged in the press and stuff and I knew a different side of them, I would feel like an obligation, I think, to stand up for them. But in the article, she talks about how Anna had skipped out on the bill at 11 Howard, as well as several other hotels. And she knew this at the time because I guess concierges like talk to each other, which I had no
I'm
idea.
sure.
So she just assumed that Anna was running low on her trust funds and she didn't understand the extent of like what was going on. She just thought maybe she's having some wire transfer issues or something.
Yeah.
She's just one of these trust fund kids, right? And
Yeah.
so, and it's interesting because I heard or read a lot of people kind of have that view of her because, they go on to say like rich people are so rich that they like forget to have their cards on them or like they're used to things being taken care of and so when she would say, "Oh, I left this there. Can you pay for my taxi?" Or can you, "Oh, my card's being declined because it's foreign." People just bought it because it is something that happens. Like I don't think, certain famous people probably don't carry around.
Yeah.
I understood what because when you're reading it, you're like, okay, these people are idiots. Like if she's getting cards declined, but I understand it in the context of like you're with trust fund kids and you're with these people who say they have a lot of money, and that's kind of the behavior. So
And it's a mutually beneficial relationship. I mean, these
right,
people, hanger oners, some people call them, the reason they take these jobs and hang around these people is to catch like the little whatever crumbs
breadcrumbs.
that these people throw out to them every once in a while.
Yeah,
Like the $100 tips, like those probably went so far,
yeah,
and just giving people this idea of how wealthy she was.
and with Neff, it sounds like they were still friends up until Anna gets caught with a lot of this stuff. And I tried to find out if they were still in contact, but they don't follow each other on Instagram as far as I could see. Um, but I don't
And that's
know.
how you tell if people are friends
I
nowadays.
mean, I don't know, right? Kind of
No,
do.
it's not. Yeah, no, that's what people usually say, whether or not they're following somebody to see if they're friends or not.
When all of this
Um,
came out, sorry to like, but when all of this came out, so there was talking about like hanger honors. So Anna was like totally, I guess you would say like a coattail person, right? So it kind of leads us to this next person that you're going to talk about because she literally took like one picture with this girl and all of a sudden that's what people were like putting all over the media. I can't
Yeah,
even imagine. You're like, I don't know her.
exactly. So this woman, her name is LD, and she's a Brazilian DJ who spoke with BBC News to share her story. Long before New York Magazine article and that going viral and everybody finding out about Anna, Elle met her in Montauk at a party on the beach. And if you're not, did you watch the show The Affair?
Mm-mm.
On Showtime. Oh my god, it was so good. Anyway, it was in Montauk, and that's like exactly what I visualize the Showtime show. Anyway, she was DJing at the Surf Lodge Hotel, and one morning there was a knock at her door, and when she opened it, it was Tommy Soleil and a very overdressed Anna Delvey. And Anna never smoked.
Smoked.
I bet she smoked a lot, actually. Anna never spoke. But when Elle's friends were remarking on how beautiful her dress was, she finally perked up and she just said one word, Balenciaga.
Balenciaga.
Elle refused to let them stay with her as she had no idea who this person was. And she had one hotel room. She's not going to stay with two strangers. So when Elle asked Tommy about Anna, he simply described her as an extremely wealthy European heiress. So that was the story she was sticking with. And he also remarked that she had previously worked at Purple Fashion magazine in Paris, so she was using that as well. And he also said she needed friends desperately. So he was really pulling at this DJ's heartstrings, trying to get her to hang out. And the next day, she walked out to the parking lot, Elle, the DJ, and she found Anna sleeping in a car, and it was a super hot May day, and she saw her laying there in this pink Balenciaga dress, and her cheeks were all red, and she just thought, like, that's strange. Like, why is this heiress sleeping in a closed hot car?
Mm.
So after she sees her at this hotel, she starts seeing her everywhere in Manhattan, and she's all over the social scene. And Elle also said that whenever Anna was around, she would be with like a group of friends, but nobody would really be talking to each other. They were always on their phones, and it didn't seem like it was much of a friend situation. Like, who knows? Maybe she was paying them to hang around her. And she would always bring up the fact that she needed to find a rental for $25,000 a month. And she kept talking about it and talking about it. And then she called Elle crying from Paris once and said that she needed to borrow 35,000 euro to leave a hotel that was being extremely mean to her for ordering so much champagne that she couldn't pay for. And her father was in a different time zone, so he couldn't be reached. And so she asked her if she could pay, and obviously she didn't even have that much money, and she was like, no. And then Anna said, and your boyfriend? Like, she's had no shame. Like,
The
she just
best
went
part
straight
about
over
it,
her.
the best part about it when you're reading the article, she says, Anna's like sobbing, and then she's like, I don't have that kind of money. And so she's like, all of a sudden stops sobbing. And then when she asks about the boyfriend, and the reason she asked about the boyfriend is because her boyfriend was in freaking Forbes. And so she knew that her boyfriend had money because he was like in the 30 under
Wow.
30 or something like that. And she was like, what the fuck? Like, no, you weirdo.
Wow. So she researched people. She was really good.
I just love that
Mm,
she like stopped crying. It's like, what about your boyfriend?
yeah. Yeah. That was it for Elle. That was
So
the
boss,
last red flag, and she learned the rest of Anna's escapades through the media.
I just think it's so interesting that like she caught on real quick. It's like
Yeah.
you said earlier, like being observant and seeing people's behaviors and listening and seeing, and I don't know, it's so interesting.
Yeah.
But
She was smart.
yeah, she was smart, and unfortunately, poor Rachel Deloche Williams would not have the same fate. So Rachel, she worked for Vanity Fair at the time as an editor, and she actually has a book coming out. I'm just going to say that now because you definitely, if you want more information about this woman's story, you should go read it. It's called I think it's called My Friend Anna, the story about the fake heiress or something like that. Anyways, um, it goes real in depth of their whole stories, but I'm just going to give you kind of the Cliff Notes version, if you will. So they met in 2015, and according to Rachel, Anna had at that time about more than 40,000 followers on on Instagram, and she says I took that as like she was legitimate because which I was like, I kind of get that mentality because you're like, oh, you're this, world's heiress, blah blah blah, and then you look on Instagram and she's traveling and she's got all these followers, and like, okay, well, maybe, I guess,
Yeah.
like, why not? So Rachel never really questioned it because Anna was friends with Rachel's mutual friends and said that there was a sense that she was a little bit aloof and disconnected, but only in a way that fitted with who she claimed to be, a trust fund kid who could be a little bit messy and who couldn't care less about being organized with her finances, which kind of goes back to what we were just talking about. So it's
Yeah.
interesting that's her quote of like what this girl was like, and it just all kind of made sense. Um, but it wasn't until a girls' trip that had things kind of spiraled out of control. So Anna had convinced Rachel to take this trip. That oh my god, this trip is like makes my head hurt. She's selling it to Rachel like I'm gonna pay for everything, and she's like, okay, let's go. I mean, who's gonna turn down a luxury vacation? No one,
Not
no one.
me.
Don't be judgy because you would say, okay, let's go. So Anna convinced Rachel to take this trip, and then she sent her a confirmation, like email, showing that she had booked a like sweet villa, like your Kardashian style, $7,000 a night room,
Wow.
showing that it was prepaid. I have no idea how Anna pulled that off. I mean, she must be real good at like forging shit because I don't like, how do you, anyways.
I wonder if she does it herself because, like, did you read the Girl with the Dragon Tattoo series?
Oh, yeah.
Remember how she had like friends, like hacker friends that would help
Oh,
her? Maybe she
mhm.
knows other con artists. Like, you would assume some of them, they know other criminals, right?
That's a
If
good
they've been in
point.
jail.
That's a really good point. Uh, so yeah, I don't know. But so they go on this trip and everything's great. And then about 2 days into the trip, they're coming back from doing something, and Rachel says they walk in and security or management or something of the hotel pulled Anna aside as they walk in, and she said you could tell from like their body language that something was up and it was heated, and Anna seemed to kind of have handled it, but then like I think the next day or something they came, and security was so fed up with Anna's lies or pushing them off because they were saying that they didn't have a functioning card on file. So they came to their room and just sat there until until they were going to get paid. And so finally Rachel, like, and these security guys, like, basically pressured Rachel into putting her card down until Anna got things like sorted out.
I'd be so scared in
I
another
wouldn't, and,
country.
and that's exactly what Rachel says. She says, I didn't want to get stuck in another country and like go to jail. Like, you don't know. I mean, literally, your life is kind of in danger at that point, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
she puts her card down so they have a functioning card on file. Also, allegedly, someone got fired, I guess, at this hotel because of this like misstep, which I thought was kind of crazy. So she, so they, so Anna goes and does something else like the next day with all of this, and Rachel ends up going. She doesn't say where. I assume she went home, but she has another destination. And when she landed, she got confirmation that $62,000 was put on her cards from the hotel. The entire thing was put on her cards.
Oh, I
And
can't imagine.
she was freaking out. And she said it got to the point where, Anna, it went on and on for weeks about back and forth of how she's going to get paid. And every time there was like an excuse, there was one time Anna was like, oh, I have a check. And she's like, I'm coming. Or no, she didn't even tell her. I think she just showed up at her hotel and demanded the check. And then Rachel was like looking for it in her room. And then she's like, oh, my lawyer must have it because I was in the Tesla with him. Like this whole made up bullshit. And she's like, I'm not leaving until I get this check. She stayed with her until I think like midnight that night or something crazy, waiting around. And she said, I'm coming back at 8 a.m. And of course, when she got there, Anna wasn't there. So, and the poor girl like couldn't pay her rent, couldn't pay for anything. She's really, this is not something to be taken lightly. I mean, she says this was more than what she made in a year. So
Oh, that's so
can you imagine?
painful.
I can't even. I would be losing my
Mm-hmm.
mind. So finally, Rachel's had enough and decides to go to the police. They actually do nothing, by the way. She also tried to go to civil courts and they were unable to help her. And so she's she's just like doesn't know what to do. And finally she ends up contacting the New York County DA, or she wrote them a letter, I think with the article or something, and they called
That's smart.
her. Yeah, and they called her and they said, for more information, because she said, I think she's, well, I forget what she said. Something along the lines of like, I think she's doing this to more people. And they said, I think you're right. And we're already investigating her.
Oh, wow.
Because at this point, the hotels and restaurants had filed complaints with the police and were building a case against her. So a month had gone by that Rachel had spoken to Anna at this point, and police told Rachel that Anna didn't appear for a court appearance, and did she think she could help them locate Anna? So she she tries texting her kind of sporadically for a few weeks just to kind of like reconnect and not make it feel weird. And they finally, Anna says that she's in California and Rachel's actually going there for work or something. And so they had made plans to have lunch. And the day that they're going to have lunch, through text, Rachel finds out that Anna's staying at Promises in Malibu. And that's like why she's able to meet up there. And she had let police know. So when Anna was leaving to go to the lunch, police arrested her. And it's so sad because she's like, you can tell she still feels like empathy for her friend, right? Because she says once police called her, she was sending texts to Anna's phone, like, oh, I'm here. Oh, where are you? Oh, I don't know. Did we get the time wrong? Like, totally faking it. She's like, I don't know if I just didn't want her to know that like I was involved. And I'm just like,
Yeah.
so sad. Like, you were screwed over. And she's probably just like, I don't know. And this girl's really cute and like she seems like very sweet. And I like saw her in an interview and I just felt so bad for her. I don't know. So this was on October 3rd at 9:18 a.m. when officers had let her know that they had arrested her. And Anna was held at Rikers Island while awaiting trial. And she was able to get an attorney named Todd Spodek. And I remember reading something about how he made her sign over like all this stuff to make sure he was gonna get
I bet.
paid. Ah, anyway, he argued that the institutions did not do their due diligence and that her crimes should have been a civil matter. They rejected a plea deal that would have required Anna to plead guilty and would give her 3 years of prison. Anna was accused of grand larceny and theft of services up to $275,000. Arguments for Anna's defense went on to say that she had to fake it before she made it. Like this was actually in her trial.
Jeez.
Ah, and all of her efforts were solely to fund ADF and to not scam people out of their money, and that she wouldn't have been given the same opportunities if people knew her true background. That's why I was asking you earlier about like if people looked at their pedigree, because that's like her whole reasoning is that she needed to
Mm-hmm.
pretend to be someone to get what she wanted. Her attorney went on to say, quote, I'm not saying it was appropriate to pretend to be a German heiress or falsify documents, but she would never have given the opportunity to even talk to these people unless they believed she was a German heiress. So shame on them.
Hmm.
Which I was
That's one
like,
way to go for it.
you know, just, I mean, I get what they're saying though, right? Like, even her friend Neff had said at one point something along the lines of like, how dumb are these people with these institutions? Like, they didn't like check into her. They just like took her word for it. So you kind of have to laugh at that because she was able to just
That's the
pull some
part that's
crazy stuff off.
it's so infuriating though, because for little people like us, when we go to the bank, they're like, we need your fingerprint, we need your firstborn, we need a drop of your blood, we need this notarized. And then with rich people, they're like, we'll just take your word for it.
Dude,
Here's $22
on that
million dollars.
it's so funny you say that on that same subject. So my mother-in-law's like out of the country and she needed me to like deposit money into her account. I was like, I don't know if they're gonna let me do this. Like I was like all stressed out. I made her go to the banks before she left to like make sure because it's so true. We have to like
Yeah.
jump through hoops. It's so crazy. But anyways, the trial gets better because this is what I thought was really interesting. During her trial, Anna's defense team paid for a celebrity stylist to dress her.
Oh, wow. I
Oh,
remember reading
yeah.
about this.
Oh, yeah. And even one day, I guess there was some sort of, I don't know what the deal was, if she didn't like the outfit or she didn't whatever she threw like a temper tantrum about it allegedly and was like late for trial one day. And I think that's like the one day you see her in like not a great outfit. I think it was like a camel shirt or something. I don't know.
Interesting. I'm going to go look now.
But come to find out, the styling kind of seemed to be an angle for her because she had to like look the part. And you see that kind of play out as she gets deals with streamers or channels or
That's so
books or whatever.
true.
She's got to play into that part a little bit.
Yeah, because there's so many pictures of her at trial, and she does look very like a high fashion. And if she didn't have those fancy clothes, she would look so homely and just
Mhm.
like any person off the street. So that was very smart on the
Yeah,
part of
I've
the
never heard
attorneys.
of that happening, but I thought it was pretty clever also. On May 19th, 2019, Anna was found guilty on many of the charges, including 3 counts of grand larceny and 1 count of attempted grand larceny. He ends up being not guilty. This is the part that infuriated me with the charges that her friend put on her card. Like, she didn't have to she wasn't charged, found
Well,
guilty of any of
I
that.
mean, she stayed at the hotel. It's not as if she wasn't there.
I
You know what
know,
I
but
mean? Like, if you
still
stay there,
bad for
I understand you're
her.
taking your friend's word for it, but uh, you agreed to it and you stayed there, and you know what I mean? Like, there's no way she's gonna get around that.
I was just so like sad for her friend to have to, and she was like getting, I think, shit for her book because they're like, oh, well, you're cashing in. She's like, yeah, but like, she hasn't paid for anything that I've had to endure during this whole thing. Like, why shouldn't
Yeah.
she cash in?
Yeah, for sure.
So, anyways, and the judge ended up sentencing her from 4 to 12 years. She could have pled guilty and gotten 3. She got 4 to 12. But after almost 4 years, Anna Sorokin Delvey was released from prison, which was last month. Um, and she gave her first interview shortly after that. And then she immediately started posting onto Instagram, to Twitter. She made a website called Delvey Mail. She also has AnnaDelveyDiaries.com, which she said is going to basically be the catalyst for her book, and she's filming something she calls Anna TV. I read her saying she's having people follow her. She doesn't really know what she's going to do with it, but she's just documenting it all. In her interview, she goes on to talk about her experiences in prison, where she basically says is a waste of time. Quote, it's about who you know. It's kind of like the scene in New York, but amplified, because if you know the right officers, they're going to get you the right job. So I had a job in the gym because I wanted to work out when no one else would go, and they gave it to me. It's all about who you know and what people think of you. And then she goes on to talk about, quote, I have to deal with the consequences of my actions. Yeah, but to just sit around and just think about everything I've done, it's not going to have changed it. I don't know. It would be a huge waste of my time. I did what I did, and I was, I don't know, 23, 24, 25. I'm just trying to fix things and move on. I never really went, oh, let me go and defraud City National Bank. That'll be the best thing to do ever. Or let me go take this random girl, Rachel, on vacation and make her pay. Who thinks like this? Let me just keep reading because it gets funny. She says, I feel like it's an insult to my intelligence. Like the whole case that the prosecutors created against me, they presented me as being this thirsty and greedy. I just had this vision and it didn't work out. And then the very end of the interview, they said, why are you still using the name Anna Delvey? Why shouldn't I? I'm a movement by myself.
Oh my gosh. The
I love it.
delusions.
I kind of love it, I have to say. I mean, listen, I don't agree with anything she's done, but like she is really invested. Like she's just taking on this persona and she's running with it.
Yeah, she is something else. She served her time, like Jenna said, in the notoriously scary Rikers Island prison, which is like, it doesn't get worse than that, at least
Mm-mm.
here. And after the trial, Sorokin was initially housed at Bedford Hills Correctional Facility, which is coincidentally the place where Martha Stewart served her time. And it's also the place that they based Orange is the New Black off of. Um, she was then transferred to Albion Correctional Facility and released, like Jenna said, last month, February 11th, 2021. And for her crimes, she was fined $24,000 and ordered to pay restitution of about $199,000, which might seem like a crazy amount, but believe it or not, she's paying it off quickly. Thanks to a slew of book deals, streaming series, like, for example, Shonda Rhimes of Bridgerton fame has created a series about Anna for Netflix, which will be, it's going to pay Anna apparently $300,000. And then the BBC just did an in-depth podcast which aired in December of 2019. So check that out for
That
sure. It's
one really quick too. It's a cross between a documentary and a drama. So some of it's fictionalized. Just be aware of
oh,
that. It's
interesting.
not
Okay.
fully like a documentary podcast. It's got like an element of a show in it, if you will.
Okay. And then in 2021, a play opened in the UK on the West End called Anna X, which was inspired by Sorokin's time as a con artist.
I didn't hear about
And
that
later
one.
this year, as part of its Reemerge season, the West End will present a series of plays that will deal with, quote, urgent issues integral to rebuilding our society, such as structural inequality, the climate emergency, and issues raised by Sorokin's case. And there's another project that Lena Dunham is working on for HBO in regards to Anna and her story, which I'm sure paid a nice little fee. And
And this is also the one I believe Neff is like producing with them. It's
oh,
either that or the Netflix one. I can't remember, but she's getting like a fee for per episode or something. So she also
wow.
has what is it called? She's like consulting. Yeah, she's producing and consulting it, I think, because she was
Okay.
originally it must be the HBO because she was originally asked to direct it and she said no, like it's like too enmeshed, you know.
Hmm. Interesting. So she did end up going for her directing goals after I laughed at her for a concierge job. Um, as many people say, when a criminal goes to prison, they just become a better criminal. And it remains to be seen with Anna, but I can't imagine she's gotten worse.
I think she's going to end up on top. I promise you. With all this stuff, opportunities coming, she's smart enough to monetize everything now, and she's gonna be on top. I promise. She's gonna end up being the person she wanted to be.
That's so funny because that's exactly what I thought of when I got to the end of all of our research. I was like, this woman's going to be a millionaire in just a few short months. I have no doubt. It's just a
I want
matter
to,
of if the law catches up with her.
and I want to know if she's gonna open up this foundation because now I'm intrigued.
There's no way. You're such a sweet, naive earth sign. No, she's not doing it. That does it
Ah,
for this episode of Murder in Retrograde, everyone. Thank you for listening. And remember to subscribe so you never miss an update. And be well, everyone.
yeah, and thank you
Remember,
for the comments. Keep them coming. We love to hear from you guys. So comment below if you want to talk more about this or yeah, add
if you
your
just want to talk about your day, let us
just
know.
say hi,
Yeah.
whatever. So yeah. See
Okay.
you next time.
Adios.
Be
Trust your gut.
safe.